I got a lot of advice from people, and honestly, it was helpful because it was helpful to talk through it. But actually, talking to other people just helped me clarify my own thinking. And at some point, and I really believe this with major life decisions, at some point, you've really got to tune out the noise and you've got to really turn into yourself and decide for yourself what is right for you. No one else is going to know that except you. And so it's very valuable to get all the insight and feedback, and people I really value that feedback, but there's no substitute for taking all of that as input, but ultimately feeling very good about the decision because it's your decision, it's your life, and you have one life to live.
Rahul, thank you so much for joining us on Arda's Live Long and Prosper podcast. It's such a pleasure having you on.
Caesar, great to be here, and it's so nice to see you again. We haven't spoken in a few years, and it's wonderful to be here. Thanks for the time.
It is such a pleasure. Rahul, I wanted to talk a little bit about key pivotal moments in your life that have shaped, your career, and you've had phenomenal success as a leader, building Chrome and now leading Grammarly. And wanted to have our listeners sort of get a little bit behind the scenes on how some of the key pivotal points in your career have gone. So if you could pick like maybe a couple of pivotal points, and then we'll talk a little bit about, how you made the decision, describe that change a bit, and how life, work, money, financial considerations all went into making that decision.
Yeah, thanks. It's I remember very clearly a couple of key moments. Many years later, I remember that moment with a ton of clarity and all the details around the moment. And I can pinpoint two moments very specifically. So way back when I graduated from college and I joined a PhD program in computer science. Actually, it was a program in AI, and I was interested in AI, which many years ago, way back before it was cool. And I was doing this PhD program, and my goal was to becoming an academic. As I mentioned to you, the path not taken was being an academic and being a researcher in computer science. So I was a couple of years into the program, and I published a paper in a pretty prestigious AI journal, and that was kind of a big deal. And so I had this publication, and I remember seeing it and feeling not kind of underwhelmed by it. And the reason was I really found that I cared about having an impact at scale, and I cared about making a difference in people's lives and doing things that really mattered. And my research, I'm speaking for myself. This is not some broad, statement of academia, but for myself, my research seemed very focused and very specialized and very kind of abstract. And I was like, I got this paper published, but is it really helping anyone with anything? Is it actually kind of improving people's lives? And I didn't feel like it was. And I felt the calling to go into a line of work where I could see just a much more tangible connection to the work I did and the benefit people got from that work. So I decided, it was very scary at the time. I decided that I would drop out of my PhD program and go get a job in tech. Started out as a software engineer, moved into product management. But I'm so glad I did that because I did find that connection. I was doing my work and I found that I got a ton of value when I saw how my work was helping people and improving people's lives. And so that was one pivotal moment that totally changed the course of my life. And it was scary. And I kind of listened to what was kind of my inner voice on what gave me satisfaction, and I kind of followed that voice.
At that point, when you were making this decision, like, did you get advice from others? Some solicited, some probably unsolicited. And how did you sort of navigate that whole noise around you?
Yeah, I got a lot of advice from people, and honestly, it was helpful because it was helpful to talk through it. But actually, talking to other people just helped me clarify my own thinking. And at some point, and I really believe this with major life decisions, at some point, you've really got to tune out the noise and you've got to really turn into yourself and decide for yourself what is right for you. No one else is going to know that except you. And so it's very valuable to get all the insight and feedback, and people, I really value that feedback, but there's no substitute for taking all of that as input, but ultimately feeling very good about the decision because it's your decision, it's your life, and you have one life to live.
That's a beautiful and very clear, evocative point. I know you made some pretty big other transitions in your life later. So
So
let's
one
talk
of
about
them
a
was
couple more.
something that you were involved with, Caesar, way back when. So
I am sorry if I, if I
I'm still recovering. I'm still recovering from it. But to take your listeners back to this is 2009. I was a product manager at Google. I was working in our Bangalore office, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I was looking at a couple of interesting opportunities at Google across the company, and one of them was on the Chrome browser team. Chrome had just got underway. It was still a kind of a very scrappy, small kind of team, and its success was definitely not assured or preordained. It was like this very kind of a upstart product, and I remember meeting you. I remember meeting Sundar, who's now the CEO of Alphabet. And I really felt a deep connection to the mission to improve the open web. And I really liked everyone I met. And so I was like, I love this mission. I don't know if you're going to be successful or not, but I love this idea of what we're trying to do. It seems so audacious and so great. I love the people that I connected with. It was you, it was Sundar, it was Linus, who ran engineering at the time. And I was like, I got to go do this, and I got to go do this opportunity. And at the time, it was a pretty disruptive move for me to move back from Bangalore to Mountain View. We had a young baby, just a few months old. Also, my job in Chrome wasn't very clear. Like it was just like, hey, show up and we'll kind of figure it out, because it was a small,
startup-like team.
And so I jumped at it. It was a little scary because I was kind of upending not only my life, but the life of my family to make this move, to do a role that wasn't super clear. But it was I talked to a bunch of people. I got advice. Most of the advice was, what are you doing? This makes no sense. But I really felt that this idea of working on a mission that really resonated with me and working with great people is ultimately the high order bit, and everything else falls into place from there. And so I made the move, and then it changed the course of my life. Many years later, I ended up leading that team and leading the Chrome team, and we led it, across many years to just incredible success. And I'm not at Google anymore. I don't work on Chrome, but that's always a part of my life, and I'm very proud of what we did there. So that was the other pivotal moment in my life.
A few million users to a few billion users. I mean, you saw the entire journey in a pretty pivotal
amazing
role.
Pretty amazing, yeah.
It's a pretty critical role. So as you were going through, let's go back to that time in Bangalore. I mean, you were in a phenomenal role in Bangalore, and you were looking at this slightly vague opportunity with this kind of, partly startup-y, like a little bit crazy team far out in the Bay Area.
This crazy guy called Caesar. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then how did you and your wife kind of make that call? Like, how did you discuss career? Like, obviously it made a pretty big change for her. She had to make a professional change too in her life. And how did the two of you discuss that, navigate that?
That's a really great question, and something that is really important to factor in all of my big life decisions. My wife and life partner is a key. We are equal stakeholders in things that affect our life. And so when you decide to take a new job or new role, it really is a family decision. It's not a solo decision. So in the case of moving, it really was disruptive. And so we talked about, what does it mean? What does it mean for my wife's career? She's a lawyer. She would have to kind of get recertified to practice law in the US. What does it mean for me, for my career? And we together jointly decided that we would take the leap. And honestly, it was a leap of faith on her part, on me, and enabling me to be successful. So I'm very grateful for that. I think we benefit a lot from supportive partners, and I certainly have. And this is never a solo journey. And you've always got to keep that in mind. You can achieve a certain amount of success, and you've got to keep in mind that it wasn't just you. It was a lot of people helping you and enabling you along the way. So it's something I always try to keep kind of front and center for myself.
I think you and I both have been blessed with spouses who've actually supported us and enabled us to get through those periods in our life where we've been making careers. So definitely resonates. What about financial considerations? Did that come into mind, play at all? Like, did you think about like how this would affect you financially? Obviously India to the US.
We did consider it, and it was not a straightforward decision. Financially, in some ways, we took a bit of a step back because obviously it's much more expensive to live in the Bay Area. And for me, it ended up being, you really can't justify the decision that I made on financial grounds. You can't justify the decision I made on like career progression grounds. If you measure career progress by how many people report to you, like what's your path to success, it really was a leap into the unknown. And the only way it made sense is just a belief that if we are successful on this mission, it'll be incredibly impactful and world changing. And ultimately, we're on this earth for a limited amount of time, just to get philosophical for a second. And so we got to make that time count. And so I really believe that ultimately that is the thing that determines how you should make decisions about your life. And, there's different, this is true for me in that decision. Everyone has different constraints. But to the extent possible, if you can just align around the things that make you excited, motivated, whatever that is, and just align your decisions around that, I think ultimately, oddly enough, it increases your chances of success because you love what you do, you're good at it, you're enjoying it. And if multiple people come in with that same mindset, actually, more often than not, you're going to be successful.
And I think, we were very fortunate having a set of people like that around Sundar at Chrome. I think that was a pretty unique moment where there's so many of the people who believed in the same sort of mission as well as had the same philosophy in life. So I can see that passion and light coming back in your eyes.
It wasn't necessarily a financially sound or financially driven decision.
So now let's talk about a slightly different decision later in your life. You're, a VP at Google. You've done incredibly well. You've grown Chrome massively. You're leading a whole bunch of other areas around the core of the company, around privacy and safety and security. And then you decide to go to a startup.
Yeah. Why did I do that? What was I thinking?
What was going on?
Yeah. Well, so funnily enough, I was not looking to leave Google. I was not looking for a new job. And Grammarly came out of left field for me, honestly. And the first thing that really attracted me to the company was the mission. The mission of our company is to improve lives by improving communication. And that just deeply resonated with me. You go back to this idea of you want to make your time on this world count, and you want to work on meaningful, impactful things that make things better for people. And this mission spoke to me at that level. Like, man, if we are successful and we build this incredible thing, what a great mission, what a thing to do and to do well. And so that really got me. And I was like, well, I don't see that many mission statements that I feel a deep sense of connection with. Here's one of them. I got to pay attention. And then as I got to know the team and started getting familiar with the product, I just found so much opportunity to really scale the company, scale the product, innovate. Communication is something that we do more than almost anything else, except maybe sleeping.
Human society survives on it.
Yeah, exactly. And communication has got harder. We're working across distributed teams. With the rise of remote first work, we are spending more time in async communications. And so the weight of the written word has increased. Like, my words have to convey more because it has to make up for not being in person as much, or not having the same context, or working across different time zones and different teams. So communication is hard, and it's getting harder. So if we can actually build and scale this company to help people address the challenge of communicating effectively across all the dimensions, your tone, what's the amount of context you said, are you providing too much context, too little context, all the different pieces that go into effective communication. If you can help people with that, that's amazing. And so for me, it went from I'm not really looking to make a change to, I love this mission. I love the people. I love the company. I love what we could do. I'm in. So I jumped in head first. And it's been 3 years. It's been 3 years, and it's been just a very rewarding journey for me.
Yeah. I want to take you back to that point when you were still at Google, right? You're doing very well. You have a great career ahead of you at Google, but you have this amazing opportunity. How did you make that decision at that point? Like, obviously there's a passion for this, but reality of like leaving a large company, a great compensation at some level out of a big tech company, talking to your family, there's a sense of identity that comes with that. Like, how did you navigate all of that?
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, you're right. It's a big change. And so moving from a very large company to a much smaller company comes with a whole slew of trade-offs. And so I was fortunate. I mean, this is a thing that you got to just recognize. Everyone's reality is different. And so for people listening and looking for advice, I also just want to make sure people understand that people have different constraints. But I was fortunate. I'd been at Google a long time. I had achieved some success at Google. And that success gave me a little bit of a flexibility in taking on something that is less clear, because I just had the financial wherewithal to be able to do that without negatively impacting my family. And if I didn't have that, and if it was going to be a huge risk to my family and a huge risk to, like, the providing for my kids, I may have made a different decision, but I didn't have to make that trade-off. I feel very fortunate I didn't have to. And so that made the decision easier for me, at least from a financial perspective.
Let's talk a little bit about your Grammarly experience, because you joined as CPO and now you're CEO. The buck stops at you. How has that experience been, and sort of what have been your biggest learnings and takeaways from this whole journey?
It's been absolutely an honor and a privilege. It's been such an incredible journey. So I joined Grammarly, as you said, as the head of product, chief product officer, and then I took on the CEO role actually almost exactly a year ago. And I wouldn't say that I'm a career CEO. That was not the plan when I joined Grammarly, was that eventually I would be CEO. So I'm not motivated by the title as much as I'm motivated by the opportunity we have ahead of us. So what really gets me excited is I see the mission we have to help people communicate more effectively. I see the coming deluge with AI, and AI is probably the most disruptive technical force that you and I have seen in our careers. It's going to upend a lot of things. It's going to change how we do our work, and it's going to just have a huge amount of impact, mostly for good, but also some cautionary things we gotta navigate through. So what I see is we have this incredible mission. We have this incredible legacy as a company. We have all these users who love and value the product. And we have this incredible opportunity with AI to really rethink the value we can provide to people. So simple example, just imagine today we are communicating and writing at work more than anything else. The data we have says we spend like over half our work week, over 20 hours a week, engaged in writing in different applications. You can everything from Slack to Gmail to Docs to Salesforce, across all these different apps. And in fact, that time we spend writing is going up, not down. And at the same time, we're getting inundated with information because all that writing has to be read by someone. And so I'm sitting there reading all these emails and documents and trying to make sense of what's happening. And I feel like I can barely keep track of it. It's a lot. And now with AI, we're dropping the cost of content creation. So like it's much cheaper to create content. And so like law of supply and demand, there's going to be a lot more content getting created. But that's not a good thing because we are struggling to keep updated with all of the content we're already getting. And so what does it mean when we have 10 times the amount of content? Like, how are we going to manage it? So we really got to rethink how we approach productivity and AI and communications. And really, it's not about more, it's about better. And that's really that's a foundation on which we are building the company, because the way Grammarly operates is we don't have a single app that we operate in. We don't pick favorites or pick sides. Whatever app you're using, we engage in helping you in that application. And so what that allows us to do is give you uniform user experience. and also help you connect the dots. So if you're writing an email, but you need some context from a Slack exchange or something in Salesforce, we can start bringing all that context to you at the right moments to help you bridge all of these fragmented experiences you have in communicating. And so that's an incredibly exciting opportunity. And so this is my life's mission. I'm going to go, we're going to make it happen.
Wow, that's fantastic. To be honest, I hadn't connected the dots there across all the places
literally connecting the dots across all these different applications. Yeah.
But the beauty of that is like you're kind of almost becoming my communications assistant, right? Like at that point, and then like you're at some point you're giving voice to so many more people.
That's right. I think AI enables these assistive interfaces and agentic workflows, and I think, are in a great position to really help people through this change. And we want to do it right. We take responsibility seriously. AI, if just done kind of without a sense of responsibility for the power of the tech and without respect for the power of the tech, could lead to negative outcomes. So we spend a lot of effort on our security posture, our privacy posture, responsible development practices, like really having very clear quality evaluations when new models come out, etc. And so there's a set of investments we're making. So I feel that we have this incredible opportunity. We have a responsibility to do it well. And it's exciting. It's exciting to see this journey happening.
Super exciting. And this isn't exactly part of the podcast, but I'm really tempted to ask you, like, how do you transition the company over the last few years into generative AI? Because, at some point when you took on as CPO, yes, there was OpenAI and some generative AI, but it wasn't as big as it is today. And so in the last 3 years, I'm guessing, would have to change the company in pretty significant ways to focus in on AI.
We're changing the company. We have been changing in significant ways, and we're not done yet because AI is changing the opportunity in significant ways. So I think the key thing is, we're a company that's been around for a while. We have a successful track record. And so the key is you've got to make sure, not just me, but all of us at Grammarly, but starting with me, make sure we appreciate the assets we have, make sure we're very clear on the differentiation we are creating in the product and the strategy long term. And then let's not drink our own Kool-Aid to the extent that we don't see the need to evolve and change. We have a product that's great, but as the market changes, as people's expectations change, as the technology changes, people expect different things from their tools, and we're there to provide those things. We've got a great brand. We've got a great kind of a positive association and trust from our users. Those are great things we can lean into, but ultimately we've got to make sure we are changing and transforming as the market changes. So the key is not to get complacent. It's easy to get complacent, right? I mean, it's just human nature almost to try to protect the thing you have. But it's important to just be very clear-eyed about the opportunity and stay focused on that. And just recognize the positives we have as we go after the opportunity.
And how have you communicated this across the company? Like, are you writing a lot? Are you talking a lot? Like
we do write a lot. We do write a lot in the company, as you can imagine. We love the written word. But honestly, it's all of the above. And the rule of communication: just communicate early and often, and really bring people along on the journey. We see this incredible opportunity. We've got to change how we approach things and do things, and bring people along and talk about progress. Not everything's going to work. Be clear about what's working. Be clear about what's not working. And if you can operate with clarity and transparency, I think people generally come along because they understand the need for it, as opposed to, we're going to do this because I feel like it. If you can kind of clearly explain that this is important because of these reasons, and here's how we're going to measure success, then people understand and buy into that journey. And so that's kind of how we're operating at Grammarly. That's my aspiration and hope, at least.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. And I hope Grammarly and the team know how lucky they are to have you at the helm at this point.
It goes both ways, man. I really love this place.
It's fantastic. Rahul, let's change tracks a little bit. And I want to talk a little bit about the money part of life, work, and those three things tend to work a lot together. how have you learned about finances, and how have your financial beliefs in life been formed? And what do you have any sort of core financial beliefs?
Yeah, I do have a couple. And, I'm glad you're raising these questions because I do feel like this is a bit of a taboo topic in general. And so, like, for example, if I just go back to my journey, I never really had this conversation with anyone. I was kind of figuring this stuff out as I went along, sometimes successfully, sometimes not so successfully. And so when I got my first job, I left my PhD. First of all, when I was in my grad school days, there was no money to invest or think about. But I got my first job when I left my PhD program. I was thinking about, okay, what do I do? Like, how do I think about my personal finances? And I realized I had no idea. I had no idea how to think about it. And so I started reading up. Back in those days, there was this Morningstar ratings for mutual funds, and there was CNBC talking about Squawk Box, talking about stocks. So I started to educate myself on the market, and then I started making investments. I bought a couple of stocks. I had some thesis in mind, and then I bought a bunch of mutual funds. And for the most part, I didn't do a great job with it. So I learned a couple of lessons from it. One is, I don't think I should be a stock picker because I may think I have some great thesis, but there are people who are much smarter than me spending a lot more time than I am thinking about it. So it's like a bit of hubris to think I have some deep insight that no one else had in some stock or the other. So I'm like, individual stocks, not for me. So I kind of made that decision pretty early on. And so I had a bunch of mutual funds. And I would say in summary, my journey to kind of my approach to personal finances is just simplify, be consistent, and simplify. So I had this very complicated mutual fund portfolio with all these different things. And I realized over the years, you could probably do great with a pretty simplified portfolio of index funds that are very low cost. And, just don't create such complicated kind of portfolios. And so I've really simplified over the years. And so that's one thing that I've done. And to this day, I just have a pretty simple approach to investing, in a set of index funds. And then just be consistent. Don't pay attention to the kind of the weekly or the monthly ups and downs of the market. I always believe in dollar cost averaging. Just put money in every month. Sometimes the market's up, sometimes it's down. Just keep putting in money every month. Sometimes you have more to put in every month. Sometimes you have less, but just do it consistently. And that's what I've done. I just pay less attention to my portfolio now than I did before. I feel like it's like, what is that Heisenberg's uncertainty principle? If you look at it, it changes the
You'll
measurement.
affect
Kind of
it.
thing. I really feel like that's true of investing. And so just, look at it. It's not like you just forget about it, but just it shouldn't preoccupy you. It should be a thing you do and you have discipline around it, and don't worry about it.
No, that's absolutely true. I mean, that's one of the things that we at Arnab believe pretty strongly, which is pick a simple set of strategies. If they're systematic, you can be fairly sophisticated. Systematic doesn't need to be simple, and then you can just let it sort of compound over the years. So, how do you and your wife think about finances, and do you actually have these conversations? Do you have any protocols? One of my colleagues has a sheet called the Trackernator that she and her husband review once a year. Have you guys built any practices around your finances?
We haven't. We probably should do a better job. Now you're telling me this, I'm like, we should probably do something. But the way we talk about it is, we really do. We're aligned in our approach to how we see money. I think actually that's to me more important. And we see money as just as a means to an end to enable us to live the kind of life we want to live, to enable us to have good experiences, to provide for our kids. But so when we look at kind of financial decisions, it's always from a lens of, is it enabling us to live the kind of life we want to live versus I need more, or I have a certain number in mind or something like that. So that's kind of, to me, it's always a means to an end. And so like one of the things that we aligned on several years ago is, it's about experiences, not stuff. And so do I really want to buy some super fancy couch? Not really. I don't particularly care for super fancy couches. Our kids are going to destroy them anyway, so it's a waste of money. And so, but instead, we could spend the money we have on having really memorable experiences. And so we like really care about going on nice family vacations together. And that's what we value with spending our money on. And so if you're clear on what money is enabling for you in terms of your life goals, I think that's helpful. And then you kind of realize how much do you need to be happy and achieve those goals versus not, because otherwise it feels like it'll never end. There's always more to get.
Yeah, it's always an enabler, right? Like for me personally, I think having done reasonably okay at Google allowed me to start a company and try to change finance in a profound, meaningful way. How do you talk to your kids about money? How have you taught them about finances?
We've done a couple of things. The first thing we've done is we try to instill in our kids, we're quite fortunate, and we try to instill our kids a recognition of our good fortune and a sense of like just gratitude and recognition of that. So they just don't take it for granted that this is how the world is and this is how we are and this is how we're entitled to all this. And so just kind of putting some perspective around where we are in our situation. And then we talk to our kids about, and so that comes with a sense of responsibility. We try to get our kids to just think about their responsibility. How do you help other people? What can you do to give back? And so we try to have that conversation with our kids, coupled with a sense of gratitude. And then we do try to, honestly, it's a bit of a mixed bag, but we try to help our kids just have a better sense of money management. So there's an app, my oldest son has a smartphone, there's an app and it comes with a credit card and we can kind of track his spending on the card. And so he has an allowance. And so he has to think about how he wants to spend that allowance and then he earns some money he loves basketball. So he coaches younger kids, earns a bit of money that goes into his account. And so he's seeing the full life cycle of I worked hard, I earned this money, and now I can use it for something. I go out for lunch with my friends or something. And so we're just getting to see that life cycle of money. It's you just to think about money in a structured way. And so that's what we do.
Oh, it's very helpful. Thank you for sharing. And these are questions a lot of our listeners generally have at the back of our mind. Rahul, this has been a fantastic conversation. I wanted to end with maybe 3 sort of fill-in-the-blank questions. And so I'll read out a statement and you can complete it. Is that okay?
Okay.
Ready?
Okay. Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to prosper, never underestimate the power of...
If you want to prosper, never underestimate the power of you. Really lean into you, know your skills, know your strengths, and believe in yourself.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. The 3 key ingredients for a long, fulfilling life are 1, 2, 3.
Focus on your health, spend time with your family, and enjoy the work you do. Life's too short.
I wish I could say you've become wiser in life, but you've always been like this. So I think it is fantastic. And the simple joy that adds years to your life is?
For me, it's being outside, going for a beautiful hike with my wife and kids. We were in Yosemite actually this last weekend. Being in the Bay Area, we're so blessed. There's so much natural beauty. So we went to Yosemite for the weekend and my cup is overflowing. It's just seeing the incredible beauty there. So that's what I love.
It's such a beautiful place. Oh, thank you very much. Rahul, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us and for being on Art, I'll Live Long and Prosper. It was so much fun.
It was great to be here. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.